what many may think, the government cannot directly remove a federation boss because he or she is not appointed by the government. Any other action of the government can lead to a suspension of the federation where players may suffer again. Meanwhile, the players are also not backing off. They have strengthened their protest against the WFI boss, but the legal complaint they said they will file against him for sexual abuse especially hasn't come. They're also not very enthused, frankly, with the ministry response, while also imploring the IOA, the Indian Olympic Association, to act. Now, the IOA had already asked the players yesterday to come forward and speak to them. The problem is there is no sports body, police or court that has received any complaint by the players yet, and in that situation, virtually everyone is unable to act any further. Who can resolve this issue is our big question today, and we'll take that to our guests in just a bit. First, just breaking down what all has happened today, because a lot has happened. Now, the sports minister is holding a second meeting with the wrestlers at his residence. We'll get you a live update on that in just a bit. Earlier though, WFI sexual harassment panel pointed fingers at Sakshi Malik, who's one of the protesting wrestlers. They say that Sakshi, despite being part of the panel, has never really raised any issue, especially pertaining to the sexual abuse that they're talking about now. Meanwhile, wrestlers, as I said, wrote a letter to IOA president, who's for the first time an athlete of the repute of PT Usha and the first woman president of the body, on the concerns and demands they have. At the end of it all, WFI president, the man at the center of the scandal, has just scoffed at allegations and he has refused to resign. He's going to reveal further his cards possibly only on January 22, when the special general body meeting of the federation takes place. But let me also break down in detail what the wrestlers have said to the Indian Olympic Association, perhaps that one body that can do something apart from the WFI in this case. So they have of course mentioned that there are serious complaints of sexual harassment against the WFI president, not just the coaches, the president himself. They've said that complaints have been given to them and they have been informed of these cases by several young wrestlers. Financial misappropriation on part of the WFI, that's one of the overarching accusations. Vinesh Phogart was mentally harassed and tortured by the WFI president, is something Vinesh has also on record said. That Vinesh almost contemplated suicide because of the harassment that she was facing at the hands of the WFI and especially the boss. National camp coaches and staff are incompetent, they are not meritorious. Earlier they had also told us that these are people who just do chamchagiri of the WFI boss, and that's why they're there. Staff and coaches are president's informants and they create bad environment as far as these national camps or the national team is concerned. They have requested to appoint an inquiry committee for the harassment complaints, which something I'm sure the IOA is not averse to doing, but something has to someone has to go to them and file a complaint. Maybe this letter can now act as a starting point. They have also, once again, demanding a dissolution of the WFI and resignation of the president. New panel should run the WFI affairs in consultation with the wrestlers is their demand. That is also a tricky area and I will explain that in just a bit. No political party or industry is involved. They've clarified that because there have been counter accusations coming against them of that nature. They have also now finally said, as they have been revealing in the media too, that they will not budge at least until the WFI president is sacked. The big debate that's coming up today, exactly who will resolve this wrestling dangle. Ultimately, this is playing out in full public view and somebody needs to do something. Who can do that? Who can really step in? We'll bring that debate to you in just a bit.
खिलाड़ियों को मारने तक की धमकी दे रहे हैं, तो इससे बुरा समय और क्या होगा। तो दबाव में तो आदमी कुछ भी कर सकता है।
जो इस तरह लड़कियां आवाज उठाएंगी तो मैं मानता हूं भविष्य में खतरा टल जाएगा।
जल्द से जल्द कार्रवाई हो और दूध का दूध, पानी का पानी हो, सीबीआई जांच हो, तो प्रधानमंत्री जी बताएंगे उनका कि उसमें क्या बोलना है और क्या कार्रवाई करेंगे।
इस्तीफा कोई सवाल नहीं। मैं जो है किसी की दया पर नहीं यहाँ पर बैठा हूँ। मैं चुना हुआ अध्यक्ष हूँ जनता के द्वारा।
First up, let's also get you another update. Brij Bhushan, the man under question, is not addressing the media today as was initially announced. His son, MLA Pratik, is addressing the media. He has said that Brij Bhushan will speak only after consultation with the office bearers of the Wrestling Federation. Remember, the office bearers are meeting on 22nd. Federation has also sent a reply to the Sports Ministry. The deadline was coming to an end. The ministry had asked them to respond to the charges after the wrestlers started their protest. And they are also saying that we will come out in writing after the AGM, after that general body meeting takes place. Right. So the WFI president is not speaking to the media today. He had said that he will. His son is speaking. Let me also go across to my colleague Pranshu, who's joining us live with that. Pranshu, what more details do you have?
Well, we can clearly say that there is a lot to read in between the lines as far as this press conference is concerned. The big question is, what is that big reason because of which Brij Bhushan Sharan Singh refrained from coming before the media? Remember, it is he himself who has first given the time of 12 noon for this press conference. Then he, tweeted this particular information. Then again, when we confronted him, he said he'll be talking in the evening. And then again from 4 p.m. the message was that he will be talking at sometime around 7 p.m. So the question is that while all the time when Brij Bhushan Singh was on phone, he must be talking to someone senior, probably in the party. And then there was clearly some compulsion because of which he refrained from coming before the media and rather sent his son Pratik, who is also the sitting MLA of the Bharatiya Janata Party. So now what Mr. Bhushan is saying, that we have given our reply to the Sports Ministry well within the time frame of 72 hours. We will be meeting all the stakeholders of the Federation in the AGM annual general body meeting.
Are you learning anything of what they have told the Sports Ministry?
Well, no official version about it is given, but sources do say that in that reply itself, they have maintained the very same line, that the allegations against them are false. There have been certain provisions or amendments as far as the organizing of events is concerned. That is what has irked certain players, and clearly they have said that there is no evidence to prove or point out that there has been any case of sexual exploitation. So clearly Mr. Bhushan is buying time, and now we'll have to wait for 22nd when AGM takes place at this very same venue, and after that we'll have to see what is the outcome, what Mr. Brij Bhushan has to say.
Right. Pranshu, thanks a lot for bringing us that update. I also want to go across to my colleague Arun Dhata, who's joining us from outside Anurag Thakur's, the Sports Minister's residence, where another meeting with the wrestlers is taking place. Anurag, I beg your pardon, Arun, what more are you learning? Because the wrestlers don't seem to be very happy with what the Sports Ministry has told them so far.
That's right. 4 cars had entered just a while ago at the residence of Union Minister Anurag Thakur's residence, and before that we saw the Sports Secretary going inside, and also the DG of Sports Authority of India. Remember, they had come even in the afternoon as well, because the meeting was expected at that point in time as well, but they had to leave because wrestlers did not turn up at that point in time. Now, since you have wrestlers inside, the delegation of wrestlers inside, you have the Sports Ministry officials, and of course the minister himself is inside. And today, as we heard Vinesh Phogat saying that they are expecting that some sort of headway will emerge from this second round of talks, because yesterday, if you see, Shivani, 4 hours long discussion with the minister, but nothing conclusive emerged out of it. They were very much adamant with their demands. They wanted the sacking of Brij Bhushan Singh Saran, and also dismantling the Wrestling Federation of India, and they are very adamant on these 2 demands. They were also saying that other things, forming a team or initiating an inquiry, is something which can follow later on, but these are the things which should take place first. So what is going to happen in this meeting, whether they have today come with the softened stand, we'll have to see that. But the minister was waiting for them entire day. He cancelled all his appointments arrangements and schedule. He was at his residence for the entire day. But now, since wrestlers have gone inside, sports ministry officials are inside, we're expecting that some sort of headway will emerge out of this second round of talks.
All right, we'll keep coming back to you for more on that. I do thank Arun Dhata for bringing us that live update. Let's take this across to our guests joining us. Joining me on the show, Karan Ambadar is a sports anchor and commentator. Harpal Singh Bedi is a senior sports journalist. Amit Khanna, athlete himself, and Sudhanshu Mittal, former VP, Indian Olympic Association. Sudhanshu Mittal, why don't I start with you? While I understand that the sports ministry intervention is a little bit tricky and difficult as far as a federation is concerned, why is it that the Indian Olympic Association is not doing anything and is acting as a mute spectator?
Actually, the provisions of the constitution are such that there is very little the Indian Olympic Association can also do about it in terms of suspending anybody in a federation. I have looked at the demands very carefully, and if I was to categorize, there are 4 principal complaints. One is a complaint of sexual harassment, the other is of mental torture, the third is of governance of the Wrestling Federation of India, and the 4th demand pertains to dissolution of all the state units. Now, let's look at all of them individually. Sexual harassment is a very, very serious complaint. I mean, to me, it's the most heinous of all crimes when it comes to sports. Because if sports if women in sports are to be subjected to sexual harassment, I mean, there can't be anything worse. But it cannot be in generality that a complaint has to be made. A complaint must be specific. And the right body to investigate a complaint of sexual harassment is a criminal body. I mean, this is a criminal offense. It is not an offense to be dealt by any committee.
No, but once again, IOA President PT Usha,
because
she said that you bring your concerns to us and we will look into it. Couldn't, before a police complaint is filed, can the IOA not sit with the players, take on record their complaints? I understand this letter is generic. You will need possibly testimonies of victims to come forward, but why don't they initiate a process?
No, you are wasting time. My only this thing is the committees. Sexual harassment is too serious a crime. Wasting time with committees looking into it, taking statements, it's not their job. Because it's a criminal offense. And at the end of the day, if it's a criminal offense has to be dealt with, it will be dealt with by an investigating agency.
Okay.
Delhi police must investigate this.
Let me take that to Karan Ambadar. Karan, while a lot of us are, obviously in support of the kind of stories that are coming out from the wrestlers' protest, one fundamental issue that is also coming up is how can you act on something which is just being said in the public, especially with regards to, let's say, a sexual harassment charge. There has to be more on that. Do you think the wrestlers are erring in not really making it official and formal as far as a complaint is concerned?
I think that's a very good question. You're absolutely spot on. They've managed to gather the attention, grab the attention of media, of our country, of the right people who should be looking around this matter. Now, I think they should be following protocol. I think they should be going out and lodging probably an FIR, an official police complaint, because as Mr. Sudhanshu Mittal mentioned that it's a criminal offense. Sexual harassment, male or female, done to anyone. The investigative agencies will have to look into it. And yes, now I think is the time that they should officially lodge an FIR, come out with the people who have been affected by it, ask them to record their statements, because, even if they go to IOA, eventually, end of the day, they will have to come back to a police station, to the local magistrate or whatever the local body is, wherever they are going to be launching their case. They will have to eventually file that complaint. So yes, now is the time. I'm actually quite surprised they haven't done it till now. So somebody should advise them and ask them to step out to a local police station and lodge this FIR.
I want to go across to Amit Khanna also, who's an athlete himself. Amit, generally we do understand that it is difficult for athletes, especially the younger ones, the up-and-coming ones, not just the ones who are established, who are the faces of this protest, to speak up against a boss like Brij Bhushan Sharan. We all know how powerful he is and has been as far as the Wrestling Federation is concerned. But now that they've taken this step, do you believe that this fight will not be successful unless they're able to at least provide some evidence for their charges?
See, first of all, we have to understand that these athletes are all decorated international athletes who have made India proud by winning medals and laurels at every stage, whether it is Olympics, World Championship, Asian Games, they have won medals. So, these athletes are the mind are very, very simple, like a young kid. They cannot plan things. They do not know rules and regulations. When they were having issues, then the problems started occurring. They could not actually plan things. They simply went onto the streets on the dharna. What usually a sportsman does, he spends most of his time training and resting. Now we can see most of them who are preparing for the Asian Games and the World Championship, which is in 2023, they all are on dharna. Definitely there has to be something serious about it. And immediately the committee has to be made, and we have to listen to their grievances, and strict action has to be taken. Even if, the committee takes time. But what's wrong in stepping down? Federations are made for the welfare of the sportsmen.
So you are saying that
we have to make that.
Brij Bhushan, who cannot be technically removed by anyone without making this mess greater, because then the federation itself comes under the threat of a suspension. You believe that this man should step aside. But you've heard what he said today. He's not willing to budge, not at least till Jan 22 at least.
But please understand, he's been there for the welfare of the wrestlers. And wrestlers are sitting in the cold weather. Instead, they should have been in the sports ground preparing for the Asian Games. Federation, that's his responsibility, that the athlete should be in the stadium practicing. There definitely would have been a communication gap. The federation might not be listening to their pleas, their grievances earlier. That's why they have come down to the streets, onto the dharna. Now people will tell them you have to file a complaint. They will do that. They're innocent people. They just know how to play. They just know how to win medals for the country. And I think we should all support them. And what's the harm in stepping down at the moment?
I just understand from Sudhanshu Mittal, before I go to Harpal Singh Bedi, on just exactly who can solve this entire situation, at least in the interim. Sudhanshu Mittal, is it right on part of Brij Bhushan Sharan to stick to his chair despite what has been said against him in public? Why is he doing this?
I have a problem in the entire proposition. As I said, in the absence of anything specific, the problem is that what is all being alleged is all generic. They say financial mismanagement. Somebody must come up and say something at least about financial mismanagement. Prima facie, that look, this was the money which has been eaten up. So prima facie, something has to happen. Prima facie, then see, when you say that the entire Wrestling Federation of India should be dissolved, including the state units. Somebody will say, what is the fault of the state unit? Supposing I'm the president of Delhi Wrestling Federation, what have I done for being dissolved? So unless you say something specific which indicts the federation, which indicts a generic mismanagement, a generic sexual harassment, a generic financial embezzlement, this will lead to nowhere. Because students, jurisprudence or fair play is that on the basis of a prima facie allegation or evidence, an action is taken. See, Brij Bhushan Sharan is claiming innocence. Now, she's claiming innocence. Obviously, he's not going to... Incidentally, I may also remind everybody that I believe on the 19th of February, the elections are taking place. His term is ending, and 19th February, the elections have to take place. That's one side of the story. Then when the elections are around the corner saying that it should be dissolved, and they must be administering the federation, will not go down, because then questions will be raised as to why they're saying this. They should be specific. If there is financial management,
I get your point, and also assigning interim committees never goes down very well as far as the international body is concerned. This is an Asian Games year. Next year is the Olympics. I don't think we want a situation where the federation itself comes under question, because then all players get affected. Harpal Singh Bedi, I come to you. Where do you see this standoff going? Because right now, at least till Jan 22, Brij Bhushan Sharan is not budging, the players are not budging. Where do you see this going? And do you believe that on Jan 22, the federation itself will push Mr. Sharan to say that please step aside?
So I am not an astrologer, I cannot predict. But one thing I will say, there are no innocents in this play. Nobody is innocent. And I disagree with Mr. Amit that players are innocent. They are not. No athlete. Yes, up and coming grassroots level, they are innocent. But people who have played for three Olympics, two Olympics, World Cup, they know what they are doing exactly. I have been covering sports for 40 years. I know every play. Not every player is wrong. But one thing is they have made mess. Everything, the dirt will come out. Nobody's cupboard is clean, whether the athletes or whether the officials. Remember this thing. And I think this Brij Bhushan Singh is right when he said that he will talk there will be tsunami, because he also has a lot of things. So now the question here is, I am reminded of what happened 10 years back, when before this last days of UPA government, there was a hue and cry out BCCI president should be removed and Srinivasan. As it looked that there is nothing else in India except this and Srinivasan. He was everything. So what happened? It suited the government, because they know now like this. Now last 3 days, it seems there is no corruption. There is no unemployment, there is no price rise, there is no inflation, there is no problem. Only Brij Bhushan is the man who is responsible. So this suits our government also. Same thing, this suited Manmohan Singh government also. They allowed this, everybody. I used to say, because we were earning money, but Srinivasan's sake, we got a lot of money, because every channel was asking us. But it looked at Srinivasan is the end and all and
I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying, that the story is dominating the headlines. But Mr. Bedi, it's not as if...
And it's saving the government. Second thing is, the players
Mr. Bedi, can I ask you a final question? It's not as if Mr. Brij Bhushan Sharan has nothing to answer for. It's not as if we don't know the way he has run the wrestling federation.
So that is the case with every association. That is not why you are blaming him. Remember, wrestling federation has a very not a glorious past history. VC Shukla, who was an all-powerful minister in Mrs. Gandhi's, his shirt was torn. He was in the stadium. Previously, all the presidents were beaten up in the stadium. Now this time, it is outside the stadium because there is TV. Otherwise, if you go and look into the history of Wrestling Federation of India, now one or two exceptions, there not a single president has come.
Can I ask you, Mr. Bedi, I want to give a final 30 seconds to all of our guests. Exactly who do you think can resolve this current standoff?
Indian Olympic Association.
Standoff can only be resolved if prima facie some evidence is furnished by these people, based on which some action can be taken by the word body or can be taken by anybody. But without any prima facie specific evidence or allegation, this standoff will continue.
Mr. Bedi said the Indian Olympic Association. Let me give Karan a word here. Is it a little bit of a disappointment that the Indian Olympic Association hasn't really truly stepped into the picture except for a tweet by PT Usha? I mean, this is an Indian Olympic Association that would have been the dream of all of our sports reporters and lovers, because this is the one that all of us had been looking forward to, with actual athletes of repute in decision-making power. But they've been quite silent.
No, I believe they had the meeting earlier this evening, if I'm not wrong. I don't know the outcome of the meeting. I'll be very honest. See, IOA cannot do anything about it. Max, they can suspend the federation, which means not the elected body, but just the federation can be dissolved by them. But it will not serve the purpose. I mean, end of the day, these are sexual harassment charges. Even if you let go of financial irregularities, these have to be dealt with and cleaned up in, once and for all. As
Amit made a very good point that the athletes don't always know how to fight these battles. Possibly someone needs to counsel them as well. Right, Amit?
I am sure they're being counseled. I am sure they're being counseled.
They're being counseled, but in the wrong direction, you're suggesting.
No, definitely, yes. I think they definitely need some counseling.
Yeah. Amit, yes.
They definitely need some counseling. They have to be told that this is the right way to do that. As our honorable guest was talking, they have to provide evidence. They have to give evidence if there is any sexual abuse or there's any other grievances they have to produce
some evidence. Okay. I leave it at that. I've run out of time. Unfortunately, what's happening is we're going around in circles as far as the story is concerned over the last couple of days, because apart from the initial allegations, not much else has come out. We'll wait and see what steps the players take next. I'm moving on to our next big story. A big political showdown has erupted in India over Pfizer vaccines today after a video of the Pfizer CEO from Davos going viral. Rebel News journalists were seen asking a lot of uncomfortable questions to the Pfizer CEO on the sidelines of the ongoing World Economic Forum. The chief executive officer of the US-based pharmaceutical giant Albert Bourla was seen evading the repeating questions. What followed next was a political slugfest in India. Union Minister of State Rajeev Chandrasekhar tweeted out the video as a reminder of Congress party's stand during the pandemic. He wrote that Pfizer had tried to bully Government of India into accepting its conditions of indemnity, while Congress leaders pushed for the foreign vaccine, including this one in India. But the party in question didn't back down either. Senior Congress leader Jairam Ramesh reacted on Chandrasekhar's tweet, calling him a liar. So why is the Pfizer CEO under the gun? That's because several accusations and reports against Pfizer vaccine have come out recently, with many saying, "We told you so." So research has now revealed data integrity issues as far as the vaccine trials are concerned. False data, unblinded patients, unqualified vaccinators during trials have come to light. Company is also accused of reporting on adverse events in only phase 3 trial late. It faced a probe in Europe over links to kidney and skin conditions, admitted to have misled EU Parliament over transmission prevention. Monitoring agency has also raised an alert over risk of stroke amongst seniors. Pfizer vaccine faced investigation by CDC and FDA over risks in USA. The CDC and the FDA acknowledged links to stroke amongst the seniors, but continued to recommend the shots. Meanwhile, Twitter files have revealed that Pfizer board member pressurized Twitter to censor anti-Pfizer tweets. First up, listen in to this viral video of the Pfizer CEO being chased down by a bunch of reporters.
I mean, we now know that the vaccines didn't stop transmission, but why did you keep it secret? You said it was 100% effective, then 90%, then 80%, then 70%. But we now know that the vaccines do not stop transmission. Why did you keep that secret?
Have a nice day.
Is it time to apologise to the world, sir? To give refunds back to the countries that poured all their money into your vaccine that doesn't work, your ineffective vaccine?
Yeah, you have a go there, right?
Are you not ashamed of what you've done in the last couple of years?
What do you have to say about young men dropping dead of heart attacks every day? Why won't you answer these basic questions?
Shame on you, sir.
Shame on you.
The big question coming up, the Pfizer vaccine is under question all over the world, especially in the West. Is India's vaccine stand then vindicated?
That the vaccines didn't stop transmission, but why did you keep it secret?
Have a nice day.
Shame on you, sir.
Shame on you.
Going across to the guests joining us, Syed Zafar Islam is from the BJP National Spokesperson, Shudhatra Paul from the Indian National Congress, Dr. Isaac Bagoch is infectious disease physician and scientist joining us from Toronto as well. I want to begin with Syed Zafar Islam. Why do you believe what has happened today has vindicated your stand?
See, why we are making this kind of statement? Purely because there is a past. If you just do a back testing of the events which had unfolded at that point in time, then whether it's Mr. Kharge, whether it's Rahul Gandhi, all of them were making a statement that, or Mr. Chidambaram, that, and many other leaders, Jairam Ramesh, and many such leaders from the Congress party were making a statement that we should consider the government should consider the proposal made by the Pfizer. Pfizer were actually pushing Government of India to accept a proposal which was not in the interest of the people of this great country and for the nation. And that's why government pushed it back. And they wanted certain conditions to be laid on, which Pfizer didn't agree. And that's when Government of India decided not to go for Pfizer, and as you know, we developed our own vaccine, which is much better, which their efficacy level is much higher, and it is widely acceptable across the globe, and the various government is actually thanking
Mr. Zafar Islam, when you say that the Congress was pushing for the Pfizer vaccine, are you then alleging that they were lobbying for the vaccine in India against India's interests to serve a few pharmaceutical companies?
Well, if you just, as I said, that if you do back testing of all the statement and the events which had unfolded, it looks like that they were hand in gloves with the Pfizer company, and they were pushing the government of India, since they are the principal opposition party, they were making this kind of a statement only to serve the purpose or interest of Pfizer, and somehow disregard the interests of our own people.
And Indian vaccines,
so
especially the ones made in India or the ones developed in India. Sujata Paul, frankly, this is a charge that the Congress party has not faced only now, after the Pfizer CEO being grilled by some independent journalists. This is a charge that the Congress party was facing even at the time, that there was something mysterious and fishy about Congress and other opposition leaders running down Indian vaccines in the interest of foreign vaccines.
It is very interesting to note the angle that this entire thing is taking. Because if you heard Mr. Islam, he was mentioning that there were some terms and conditions which could not be sorted out, because of which this vaccine did not come into India. They are not saying that the vaccine was not going to come into India. What we were saying was that we needed more vaccines, and we needed vaccines as soon as possible, because we had a large number of people to vaccinate. So where is the point of vindication here? There were certain clauses which the government could not work out. Otherwise, this vaccine would have come in. And
Sujata Paul,
probably,
don't you think that for the vaccine maker like Pfizer to seek that indemnity clause was in itself unethical, to say the least? And it may have bullied America and some of the other countries to give it that indemnity, which possibly is coming back to bite them. But why was the Congress party pushing Pfizer's case in India, knowing fully well that they want complete guarantee against any lawsuits over this vaccine? Why?
As far as we are concerned, the people of this country are our prime concern. And at that time, if you remember,
for the people of the country, that's why this is a question.
Can you please let me complete what I'm saying? So what I'm saying is that, again, I'm going back to the same point, that nowhere has the government said that we would not have got the vaccine in. So let's not say that the government did not want this vaccine and the Congress party wanted this vaccine. The government also wanted it, but the clauses did not work out. And if you heard Mr. Islam say that the clauses were such that they could not be brought in, how were we lobbying for the vaccine? We were lobbying for our people.
Because you were pressurizing the government into giving the approval for Pfizer, despite knowing the fact that they had unreasonable conditions.
I'll tell you, I'll remind you what happened in
Can I just
February
come in for 10 seconds?
2021. Just a second. February 2021, do you remember when vaccines were exported out of India without any transparency? And the government needs to learn to be transparent. We expected the government to come out in the open and explain why those vaccines had been
Okay, let Mr. Zafar Islam do that. Let him do that then.
I think Sujata Paul ji has not understood the dynamics and the context. All we are trying to tell you that there were multiple options, including Pfizer. We chose not to go ahead purely because we had certain reservations. The government of India had certain reservations. I mean, it is not fair on your part to make that this was the only reason, that was the only reason, because government of India knows it best that what was the reason and what was the concern and the constraint, and why government of India didn't go ahead with that proposal of Pfizer. While Congress party was pushing, because now they are not in the government, so now they are not in the government, so they cannot deal directly. So they were pushing as a principal opposition party. They are making pressure on the government to at least go ahead and do close a deal with the Pfizer, so that they are used to kickback. they will perhaps, I'm guessing that they will have...
You were taking the decision.
Anita
If he pressurized you, you were not going to listen to us.
Anita
and
Paulji,
do what
please listen to me. I am not interrupting you. I am not interrupting you. You will be able to respond to me once I am able to finish. All I am trying to tell you that your people, your leaders are known to accept kickback. They are known to accept kickback. They are known to work through agents. Our government actually has never worked through middlemen. We directly deal with the people, so we know exactly what was the reason, what was the constraint, and why we chose not to go ahead.
Okay.
But your people didn't know, but you wanted to become agent of Pfizer. That's why you are pushing us.
Okay, I want to step away from the politics of it all. I want to go across to the doctor on the panel, Dr. Isaac Bagoj. Don't you think it's only fair that Pfizer does answer some of the questions that have come up against it? Because there are large concerns and some of them have been accepted, some possibly still being accepted. And they are accused of brushing some of the concerns that people and doctors were raising against them in social media through Twitter files. Don't you think it's only fair the Pfizer CEO should answer some of the questions that are being put to him?
Yeah, I mean, let's just start with the fact that let's remember what vaccines are. These are a public health intervention and a tool to protect not just individuals, but also communities. If you want public buy-in and public trust, you have to be accountable and have transparency with your data and with your information. If you want people to take these vaccines, you need public trust and public buy-in, which means you should be open and honest about data and the effectiveness of these vaccines, and of course, any side effect profile as well. The key thing here is that when you look at all the data from all over the world, even independent of Pfizer's data, you look at independent countries reporting their vaccine safety and efficacy, you can see that these vaccines indeed do a remarkable job, even in the Omicron era, in terms of protecting people against more severe manifestations of the virus, like hospitalizations and death. And they are very, very safe, with the caveat that, like anything else, of course, there are still some signals and there's rare adverse events that happen. You have to acknowledge that they happen. We have to be transparent that they happen. But we've seen
Dr.
Isaac,
are you saying that some of the concerns that have been made over Pfizer, especially for the aged or the senior citizens over 60, 65, are you saying that those concerns are not large enough to be disclosed at the outset before the vaccine was being pushed?
What I'm saying is transparency is important. And, if there is any data that is available that should that has any potential safety signal, that should be shared, and that should be shared on a public forum. But it should also be shared in a fair manner that also contextualizes the data. And it's not just all data is created the same. You have to discuss the level and quality of the data, the uncertainty with the data, how this data compares to others as well. So I think there's a lot that goes into it. But the key message is transparency is key. Okay.
I'll have to leave it at that. Fundamentally, what has happened is that because of some of the censorship of the conversation around COVID and COVID vaccines that has predominantly gone on in the US, some of the trust that the public had with what they could ask, say, and what was being told to them has been eroded. We'll see how this goes further, especially in context of the Indian politics. I have to slip into a very short break. On the other side, a special coming up for you. I speak to the Foreign Minister of Sri Lanka. Remember, this is coming in the wake of his meeting with his Indian counterpart, S. Jaishankar. We'll get you more on that in just a minute.
उनके इस्तीफा से मामला सुलझेगा नहीं। उनको ये चाहिए कि पूरा जो WFI है वो भंग किया जाए।
देखिए, मेरे को ये लगता नहीं है कि ये बात पूरे देश की जो बॉडी है ये भंग होगी, क्योंकि स्पोर्ट्स कोड में इसका ऐसा कुछ भी प्रावधान नहीं है। हाँ, जो इनकी असली जो मांग है, जो खिलाड़ियों की जो आरोप लगाया है यौन शोषण का, उस पे सरकार को जो ध्यान देना चाहिए, उसकी जरूर जांच होनी चाहिए। जो चीजें हैं जहाँ से जो खिलाड़ी जहाँ से परेशान है उस पे काम होना चाहिए। जो इनकी दिक्कतें हैं वो है। और मेरे को लगता है कि पूरी बॉडी, पूरे देश की जो स्टेट बॉडी है वो ऐसे खत्म करना, ये शायद कहीं भी प्रावधान में ये चीजें नहीं लिखी है। और ज्यादा मेरे को पता नहीं, पर जहां तक मेरे को लगता है, हाँ, जो चीजें जो मांगी है, जो डिमांड है, जो पहलवानों की जो चीजें हैं कि भाई उन पे यौन शोषण हुआ है, तो उस पे सरकार को जरूर संज्ञान लेना चाहिए।
योगेश्वर जी, सबसे जो महत्वपूर्ण आरोप उन्होंने लगाए हैं कि वो है यौन शोषण का, सेक्सुअल हैरेसमेंट का। ये तो क्रिमिनल है, इसके लिए कंप्लेंट होनी चाहिए, उसके बाद एफआईआर होनी चाहिए। विनेश फोगाट ने आज ये भी बोला कि कल तक तो दो तीन लड़कियां थी जो उन्होंने जो आरोप लगाए हैं, आज 5 से 6 महाराष्ट्र से, उत्तर प्रदेश से, हरियाणा से, बाकी जगहों से 5 से 6 लड़कियां ऐसे हैं जो उनके संपर्क में हैं जिन्होंने ये आरोप लगाया है। तो आपको लगता है कि तुरंत इस पे एफआईआर होनी चाहिए और पुलिस की कार्रवाई होनी चाहिए?
इसके कानून के सभी कानून का एक कानून बना हुआ है, एक लॉ बना हुआ है हमारी, कि उसके दायरे में रह के हम क्या काम कर सकते हैं, कानून से बाहर रह के हम क्या काम कर सकते हैं। सरकार भी बस एक यही कर सकती है इसमें कि इसकी निष्पक्ष जांच हो, चाहे वो जांच किसी से हो, चाहे सीबीआई से जांच हो। पर जो हम आरोप लगाए हैं, जो अगर जब तक कुछ एफआईआर दर्ज नहीं होगी तब तक मेरे को लगता नहीं ये चीजें होंगी, जब तक कोई सामने आके ये चीजें नहीं बोलेगा। कोई विक्टिम तो इस चीज में होना बड़ा जरूरी है, क्योंकि उसके अलग तो ऐसे तो बीच में कोई ऐसी बात आती है तो लोग जब तक सामने नहीं देखते, प्रत्यक्ष को नहीं देखते कि भाई ये चीजें हैं, तब तक उसमें बड़ी दिक्कतें होती हैं।
बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद योगेश्वर, हमारे साथ जुड़ने के लिए बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद। Let me now go across to our guest. We'll be joined in a moment by Rahul Mehra. He's the Delhi Government Counsel. He's the man who took the BCCI to court. V. Krishnaswamy is sports journalist. Jayaprakash is Joint Secretary of the WFI and wrestler. Here in our studios, G. Rajaraman, sports commentator. Varsha Chaudhary is a wrestler as well. Let me start with Jayaprakash. आप Joint Secretary हो WFI का. I think it's got to a situation where ब्रिजभूषण सिंह जो है वो WFI के अध्यक्ष के रूप में अभी काम नहीं कर पाएंगे, बिकॉज रेसलर्स ने बोला है मिनिमम स्टेप, बेसिक मिनिमम स्टेप जो है, दिस हैज टू बी टेकन, ही हैज टू गो। आपका क्या कहना है? क्या ब्रिजभूषण सिंह अभी भी कंटिन्यू कर सकते हैं?
देखिए, अभी कोई जो आप बता रहे हैं कि भाई ये चार्ज लगा रहे हैं या ये कह रहे हैं कि भाई इन्होंने ऐसा किया है सोशल, तो अभी तो कोई किसी ने बोला ही नहीं है कि भाई आप, दूसरे ही लोग तो बता रहे हैं कि भाई इन्होंने इस तरह से यौन शोषण किया है। आप कोई ऐसा तो सामने नहीं आया उठ के कि भाई हाँ मेरे साथ ये हुआ है।
नहीं, विनेश फोगाट ने जो आज बोला है, आपने सुना भी है, विनेश फोगाट ने जो बोला कि कल तक 2-3 लड़कियां ही थी, आज 5-6 लड़कियां उनके संपर्क में हैं और उनको ये मजबूरी ना की जाए कि वो पुलिस कंप्लेंट किया जाए। आपने सुना ना?
देखिए, नहीं, मैंने सुना है, आपने सुना है, अच्छे से सुना है, पर ये बताइए कि मैं भी ओलंपियन हूं, मैं भी कोई अगर इस तरह की बात बोलूंगा क्या विश्वास किया जाएगा कि एक ही दम मैं बोल दूंगा कि भाई ये हो रहा है, तो क्या आप विश्वास करेंगे मेरा?
नहीं सर, क्या बात कर रहे हैं? 3-3, 4-4 ओलंपियन रेसलर्स जो हैं, जो महिलाएं हैं, वो सड़क पे बैठे हैं और आरोप लगा रहे हैं पूरे मीडिया के सामने, पूरे देश के सामने। क्या आप कह रहे हैं कि वो झूठ बोल रहे हैं?
ठीक है, नहीं, ठीक है, आप वो आरोप लगा रहे हैं तो मैं क्या सच मान लेंगे? क्या आप लोग सच मान रहे हो क्या इस बात को?
सर जी, उसमें तो कार्रवाई होगी, पुलिस कंप्लेंट होगी, एफआईआर होगी, वो मैं मान सकता हूं, वो गलत नहीं है, लेकिन कम से कम वो इस्तीफा तो दे दें, कम से कम वो ये कह दे कि मैं पेंडिंग इंक्वायरी स्टेप डाउन कर रहा हूं, इतना तो बनता है।
नहीं, वो क्यों बोल दे, ये कह दें कि भाई हाँ ये गलत, ये मैंने किया है,
क्योंकि आरोप तो उनके खिलाफ है, इसलिए तो उनको स्टेप डाउन करना पड़ेगा। आरोप तो आपके खिलाफ नहीं है, मेरे खिलाफ नहीं है, आरोप तो उनके खिलाफ है, तो नैतिक तौर पे तो जिम्मेदारी बनती है ना उनकी।
क्या आरोप है?
यौन शोषण की आरोप है।
कौन आरोप कौन बता रहा है?
करप्शन की आरोप है, भ्रष्टाचार की आरोप है।
3-4 ओलंपियन मैं भी लेके बैठ जाऊं, मैं भी आरोप लगाने लगूं, मानेगा?
क्या बात कर रहे हैं जयप्रकाश जी? मतलब देश देख रहा है, सुन रहा है, आप क्या बोल रहे हैं?
बताइए मुझे एक ही बात।
नहीं, आप थोड़ा मतलब ध्यान से बोलिए, क्या बोलना चाह रहे हैं। ठीक है, आप ये कह सकते हैं कि ये आरोप तो नहीं, एफआईआर होनी चाहिए, कोर्ट में जानी चाहिए, ये सब ठीक है, मैं मान सकता हूं, लेकिन ये तो मत कहिए कि 3-4 आदमी के साथ बैठ जाओ और मैं भी बोल दूं कि क्या सच हो जाएगा। क्या विनेश फोगाट, बजरंग पूनिया और साक्षी मलिक 3-4 आदमी हैं? आपके नजरिए में वो जरा सा आदमी है, साधारण आदमी है? क्या कह रहे हैं?
स्पोर्ट्समैन है, आज अच्छे, नहीं सुनिए, आज अच्छे स्पोर्ट्समैन है, मैं भी बोलता हूँ
जी
लेकिन
राजा
ये थोड़ी है कि आप भाई जब तक इंक्वायरी ना हो, जब तक कोई जांच ना हो, जब तक जांच करानी पड़ेगी।
यही कह रहे हैं कि जांच होना चाहिए, लेकिन जांच तभी हो पाएगी जब ब्रिजभूषण सिंह, and I want G. Rajaraman, V. Krishnaswamy also to weigh in on this. There is no way you can have an independent, unbiased investigation against Brijbhushan Singh and the coaches as long as the people who are accused of that are still sitting in positions of power. It's as simple as that. You have to step down pending inquiry. Of course, nobody is prejudging the outcome. Let the police go into the heart of the matter and come to a conclusion one way or the other. But I'm convinced that you can't have that person sitting in a position of authority and have an independent inquiry. It can't be possible.
Zaka, what you're saying is right. If the
Welcome back. As debt-ridden island nation of Sri Lanka is reeling under one of its worst economic crises, India has stepped up to help in its recovery as one of its top creditors. External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar is finishing his two-day visit to Colombo, even as India has extended about $4 billion in terms of credits and rollovers to help the country get through the crisis. Currently, Sri Lanka is trying to secure a $2.9 billion bridge loan from the International Monetary Fund. But for that, it needs financial assurances from its major creditors, which include India, China and Japan. The debt restructuring that India has agreed upon will go a long way in Sri Lanka securing the bailout that it needs. Foreign Minister of Sri Lanka, MUM Ali Sabri, is joining us exclusively on the meetings he's had with his Indian counterpart in just a bit. But first up, let's also listen in what Indian External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar has said on the situation.
My primary purpose of coming to Colombo at this time is to express India's solidarity with Sri Lanka during these difficult moments. As you all know, last year India extended about $4 billion in terms of credits and rollovers to help Sri Lanka get through an economic crisis. For us, it was an issue of neighborhood first and not leaving a partner to fend for themselves.
And MUM Ali Sabri, Foreign Minister Sri Lanka, is now joining me. Sir, thanks a lot for sparing your time and sharing first and exclusively your meetings and its results with your counterpart. India had already announced that it will support, as one of your biggest lenders, backing the restructuring of the Lankan debt, which has come as a massive relief for you. Could you give me a sense of what was the discussion like as far as debt restructuring is concerned?
Yeah, debt restructuring is very, very important for Sri Lanka and its future because we have approached IMF, but funding had not come in. So two stages which we have to pass. The first one is we need to take a lot of pre-actions, so that you enter into a staff level agreement. On the basis of that staff level agreement, you need to do a lot of things. Some of those things are very painful and very difficult, which we are doing now. For example, price reflective, the cost reflective pricing, which means the petrol prices have gone up, kerosene prices have gone up, electricity bill have gone up. So it's not very popular. So once you do that, you have to tangibly see some economic benefit comes into the country. So we had another hurdle to pass. That hurdle is because Sri Lankan's debt had been declared unsustainable. We got to get our biggest creditors, bilateral creditors, give us assurances that they are willing and able and contribute towards a debt restructuring process under the IMF watch. So several countries we have been discussing for the last 3 to 6 months, but there was a kind of a stalemate. It is at that juncture that Indians, as always, come to our rescue, and as a true neighbor and a great friend, came out and gave this restructuring as required by the IMF. So we are deeply grateful, and Sri Lankans are indeed very, very grateful to India and the government of Honorable Narendra Modi and the minister himself.
Amongst your biggest creditors, India and Japan also virtually had already confirmed that they will be willing to back this. But China hasn't. How confident are you that you will be able to get China on board too?
Yeah, officially it is the only India which has been given, but Paris Club, which include Japan, have already always told us that they will support. So that is a matter of time. We should get it. China has also expressed their desire to support us, and very recently in writing, that they will support Sri Lanka's EFF program with the IMF. So that is one of the prerequisites is debt restructuring. So I think they understand that, and we are very hopeful that just like India and other countries, China will also come to our rescue and will give us the debt restructuring assurances sooner than later.
Can I ask you, sir, recently, over the past few years, especially before this economic crisis hit Sri Lanka, there was a feeling growing in India that despite Sri Lanka and its glorious partnership with India, more recently, Sri Lanka had not reciprocated amply to India's friendship in the right manner. What do you think Sri Lanka has done in recent times to assuage India's fears on this front?
No, I mean, these are perception, but to be honest, we have been always working very closely with the Indians, and several projects have come in, and there are several projects on the pipeline. The port developments are coming in, renewable energy discussions are going on, and this discussion will take this into the different level, and this visit of the External Affairs Minister, Honorable and Dr. Jaishankar, will help in that. He had a very fruitful discussion yesterday with a team of cabinet ministers, including myself, and today morning he had a very fruitful discussion one-to-one with our President, His Excellency Ranil Wickremesinghe. So both those discussions focused around expediting investment to the country. So I would say that always when you have a relationship, there are ups and downs, but our relationship had been consistently good. And of course, there are areas where we have differed on sometimes. But overall, as Sri Lankans, we are very proud and we are very happy that India is making great leap in its economic gains. It's a neighbor of a giant neighbor. Doing well is totally good for the country, for us, because we have always advocated that, because that practical also. If you look at it, is the regions which develop together, whether it's North India, North America, or whether it's Europe, whether it's ASEAN countries, whether it's Gulf, the whole area develops and whole region develops. So India developing, India taking great strides in its economic progress is great news for Sri Lanka. So we are very happy to see that. Of course, as sovereign countries, we will always discuss, we will always have differences, but I'm sure we can sit in a mature manner and help each other. Today's tone was that we will work together, we will iron out the differences, we will provide a climate which is conducive for investment, and on the basis of that, we will work together so that it will be mutually beneficial for our people.
Okay. But can I just ask you as a follow-up question, before this crisis hit, as I mentioned, that feeling was growing in India. During this crisis, India has extended funds of up to $4 billion, and they've really come through as a good neighbor, and if I may use the term, as a big brother. As you said, it's a giant country in the neighborhood, and it helps you and your growth as well. Do you think this economic crisis has told Sri Lanka who its true friends are versus some others?
No, I think Indian relationship with Sri Lanka is historical. We share a civilization together. Ours is religious, cultural, social, economic, and security concerns all together. So I don't agree that we have. Of course, there were times that differences opinion comes in, even in the family that comes in. But we have always been good friends, and India had always stood by Sri Lanka. If not for Indian support, we wouldn't have not overcome the deadly terrorist outfit which plagued our country for 26 years. So we are very grateful. But you will agree, as a sovereign country, you got to work with all the countries, so we got to work with that. Even your country, your biggest trading partners are sometimes not the most favored country, but that's how you work, and that's how the world is evolving. So we got to find a way. That doesn't mean that we are undermining India's interest, or we have different treatment for India. No. India is very, very important, the most important relationship as far as Sri Lanka is concerned. But in the meantime, we are also looking at how to leverage our location here, how to invite further people coming into the country. In fact, a single country, it is unfair for us to rely totally on a single country. It is fair by the Honorable External Affairs Minister. When I met him, not this time, even in August, he said that we have no problem at all. Others also coming and legitimately helping you and contributing to it and investing it. So concerns are probably, I understand, security concerns.
Yes.
So we will not allow whoever it is to threaten or undermine India's legitimate security concerns. I think no one had even sought to do that, but we understand that. So Indian sentiment very, very well understood. As I say, we share actually a civilization together, and Buddhism is our country's biggest religion. 70% or 72% of our people practice that. And that's a gift from India. So we understand that.
Okay. You're saying the most important relationship is the one with India. I do want to ask you finally, before I let you go, a lot of countries have taken note of what has happened in Sri Lanka. There are also countries that are nearing the same situation as Sri Lanka. Do you believe that there has been a larger realization post what happened to Sri Lanka? It's been an eye-opener to other countries to be, to not fall into the same trap.
Basically, yes, there are a lot to learn from the Sri Lanka's case. Sri Lanka had, I would put it in such a way that Sri Lanka had bad debt, bad luck, and bad policies. So you need to carefully analyze that. What were the bad policies? What were the bad luck? Bad luck, of course, we knew COVID and the unfortunate conflict in Ukraine, and bad debt came for a long period of time since 2005. Unsustainable now. So I think it's a good eye opener for everybody, and and shouldn't wait too long until your 50% or 70% of budget, in our case, becomes loan service. Then your country cannot move on. So by the time, if your entire budget 35-40% is going for loan servicing, that means you are in trouble. You need to quickly act. In our case, we haven't acted until it almost became 70%. So if you look at last budget, 70% of our budget goes to pay the capital expenditure, capital and the interest component of loans. No country, not even a country, a family or a company cannot sustain by paying 70% of your entire income or the budget rather, as loans. So there are a lot to learn from Sri Lankan case. Unfortunately, yes, we could have acted differently at times, but it's a combination of all those three things: bad debt, bad policies for a long period of time, which is accelerated in the recent past, and bad luck in terms of COVID, as well as the Ukrainian conflict, which escalated essential the item prices, particularly petroleum, coal, grains, and things like that. So a small country like Sri Lanka, which was anyway vulnerable at that point in time, and when this thing happened, it was too much for us to bear. So it is in that context that India coming in and giving us a helping hand prevented us from the total collapse. Thank you.
All right. I appreciate your time and your words for India and its help. We wish you all the very best. Once again, thanks a lot for joining CNN News 18. On that note, it's a wrap from me. My colleague Anand is joining you with The Right Stand.
Namaste, Jai Hind, and welcome to this edition of The Right Stand. I'm Anand Narsuman, and coming to you live from yet again from the Golden City in our own country, ladies and gentlemen. Well, let's try and understand the context of debate number 1 tonight.
there are many connotations or many statements that are being uttered by leaders of the opposition in and around the Bharat Jodo Yatra and of course the Congress MP Rahul Gandhi. One of those comments came in from Farooq Abdullah where he likened his journey all across India like Shankaracharya had done many years ago. But what Shankaracharya did was to try and spread a message which perhaps was taken into Kashmir, which is the cradle of our civilization.